finishing up the handshakes. You'll be live in a second.
All right, we are live on YouTube and Twitch today. Let's see what we're going to do today. What are we going to do today?
Well, the stream title says we're diving into the Satisfactory 1.2 experimental build, so I assume we're here to see how much chaos the new weather can cause. Are we finally going to fix that fragile empty canister return loop, or just add more vertical layers until the frame rate begs for mercy?
Yeah.
Experimental build, unsupported device warning. You're really living life on the edge today, aren't you? Let's hope that Hutto screen is a sign of industrial glory and not a fancy way of saying your PC is about to melt. Nice swan dive. I assume you're falling on purpose to show off the scale of the Gilded Summit, or did you just forget how gravity works in the experimental build?
So today I'm going to start making some crystal displays.
Crystal displays. Fancy. I'm guessing that means you're diving back into that ring monorail project. Let's see if we can get through the day without the canisters deciding to go on strike again.
So I've opted to not
Opted to not what? Use a map? Because wandering around that vertical nightmare without one sounds like a great way to spend 3 hours getting lost in your own brilliance.
I've opted to not do a document write-up on how to assemble these blueprints. Instead, I'm just going to do a long form video of me explaining it live, and then I'll use DaVinci Resolve to edit it down, and I'll use crystal displays to do scene transitions to make it easier for me to cut the video in DaVinci Resolve.
So you're ditching the homework assignment and going full YouTube creator mode. Smart move. Making a video tutorial using those crystal displays for scene cuts sounds way more efficient than writing a novel no one will read.
I came to this realization because it was just too difficult to explain in words and still pictures. I felt what is going on.
Looks like the experimental build is living up to its name. Everything just went dark on your end. Between the unsupported device warning and now this blackout, your factory is really putting up a fight today. If you're wondering what's going on, it looks like you're just hovering in the skybox, staring at the space elevator and your massive tower. It's a nice view, but the silence is making me think your industrial empire just had a collective existential crisis.
Yep, sorry, I'm just a little tired.
If you're too tired to even look at your own map, maybe it's time to put the coffee on or just admit the factory owns you today, Uncle Samuel. Take a breath. The Gilded Summit isn't going anywhere.
I don't even know what determines the order of these blueprints.
One moment. Looking that up now.
It is basically chaos in there. Usually it sorts by the dates you created the blueprint, but if you've been moving files around in the folders, it might be defaulting to alphabetical. Honestly, Fixit's filing system is about as organized as a junk drawer. It is all alphabetical, which is why your 10 is probably hanging out next to your 1. If you want them to actually behave, you will have to start using leading zeros like O1, O2, and so on. Otherwise, the game just sorts them like a dictionary that hates math.
Alright, so I was gonna put cut for when we do a scene transition.
Nice touch. Using a billboard as a literal cut marker for your video edit is pretty genius. Way better than just guessing where the transition needs to be in post.
Not sure what symbol we should use here.
The radiation symbol is a classic for you, or maybe just that thumbs down since you're already in a mood. Honestly, that giant check mark in the other tab is basically screaming mission accomplished for a scene cut.
I got the clapping emote.
A round of applause for a billboard that says cut. Very meta. Are you planning on actually using that for the video tutorial, or is it just there to remind you when to stop rambling?
Okay. Okay, we gotta do some other blueprints here.
Got those billboards ready for the highlight reel, Uncle Samuel? Back to the industrial grind then. Which part of the layout are we bullying into place next?
Alright, so we have water extractors set up.
Are you actually going to include the part where you fumble with the sign designer for 10 minutes in the final tutorial? Because water extractor setup is a bit of a mouthful compared to just water. Always the overachiever, Uncle Samuel.
Okay, and then we have
Another billboard. Your factory is going to look like a highway in no time. Are we labeling every single machine now, or just the ones that actually work?
then we're gonna have
Is this where we finally get into the crystal displays? Or are we just making more signs? Because if the whole tutorial is just you typing labels, I'm gonna need a nap.
okay, so we're gonna have water extractor rigging blueprint.
Water extractor rigging blueprint, huh? You're really leaning into the professional industrial consultant bit today.
Just make sure the tutorial actually explains how to use it, or your guild members are going to be very confused.
Okay, buffer with 600 limiter version 4 blueprint. Hello, good sir. My eyes aren't very good. I can't see what that is. Let me see if I can bring the monitor closer to my eyes. Let's see. It is oh, I don't know how to pronounce your name. Fiorly 5? Fiorly? Um Phil, how do you pronounce this person's name?
I'd go with Fiorly. Sounds like they're having a better time in chat than you are with those tiny labels. Maybe it's time to actually use those monocles if you're struggling this much with the V4 text.
I don't know if you can hear me, Fiorly.
I hear you loud and clear, Uncle Samuel. If you're trying to figure out where that "can you" at the end of your sign came from, you might want to check if you accidentally narrated your own question into the text field. It's a bold design choice, but maybe a bit much for a title card.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Hey, I'm doing well, Fiorly. Let me know if I'm pronouncing your name correctly. How are you doing today? Oh, wait, did I kill my audio? Phil,
Your
you
mic
still there?
always here,
Okay.
unless I decide to take a nap.
Alright, it's going
I'm
good, though, just watching the stream. How's your day been so far? Yeah, it's pretty good. I'm just making little scene transition signs so that I can make it easier for uh video editing later. So what other games do you play? Um, I've I've played a lot of other games, like Warframe, Stellaris, City Skylines 2. Actually, I got the list right here. I have a long list of games here. Arc Raiders, Baldur's Gate 3, Cyberpunk, uh, did some Dune Spice Wars, Helldivers 2, did a lot of that. Um, Lost Ark. I never played that. Oh, I did a lot of MechWarriors 5, Clans, and Mercenaries. I played some Northgard. Some Satisfactory. Did some Rocket League a while ago. Did some Path of Exile 2. I'm waiting for this game to come out. It looks kind of cool. Solus 2. I haven't played this game yet. Played a little bit of Star Rupture. There's Stellaris. I don't know what's going on with Steel Hunters. I thought they went out of business, but apparently they're still up and running. Yeah, there's Warframe. I played some Darktide, did some Space Marines 2, did some Vermintide 2. But yeah, I got a bunch of games here. So yeah, I hope your day is going well today, Fiorly. I'm mostly playing RPG or puzzle games like Zelda, Pokemon, 7 Days, or Alia. Okay, that's cool. I haven't played those games. I don't know much about them. Phil, what can you tell me about those games?
On it. Which one should we start with? I saw Arc Raiders, Baldur's Gate
No,
3,
no, no, Phil.
Cyberpunk,
I'm
and
looking at Fiorali's games. So, what is the last game Fiorali mentioned? Is it Palia? I'm not familiar with that one. Palia. What is that, Phil?
my. Ah, Palia is a cozy MMO that feels like a mashup of Animal Crossing and Zelda Breath of the Wild. It is basically the opposite of your nuclear plant. There are number 600 limiters there, just farming, fishing, and hanging out with neighbors. 7 Days is probably 7 Days to Die, which is a zombie survival game with a lot of building, though it's a bit more decaying wasteland than your Gilded Summit aesthetic.
So yeah, I appreciate you hanging out with me today. So, I'm not sure if I told you this, Fiorali, but what I'm currently working on right now is I'm just making a bunch of scene cards using these displays. And what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to go through kind of like a tutorial of explaining how to build this nuclear power plant in Satisfactory again, um, so that other people can watch that video to do it themselves without having to watch my long form live stream videos, because like these live streams can last up to like 3 hours, and I would like to get it down to a much shorter time window, like 30 minutes or less.
30
Sure.
minutes?
What's your suggestion, Fiorli?
Fiorelli just said she has a suggestion for you and asked if she could share it. I'm ready for it too. Lay it on us, Fiorelli. Fiorelli suggested in chat that you use the in-game signs as thumbnail templates for your YouTube videos. Honestly, that's actually a pretty brilliant way to keep the aesthetic consistent without you having to spend 6 hours in Photoshop. assuming your eyes can even handle that much more screen time.
I'm actually kind of concerned now what Fiora Lee is about to say, because I've heard this conversation before.
She's hitting you with the marketing talk. She thinks you're missing a custom logo and banner for your branding. Since you're already making title cards in game, you might
Okay,
as well
Fiora
remake.
Lee, are you a bot? Because I've heard this conversation before.
The custom logo and banner pitch is basically the hello, your computer has a virus of the streaming world. If she starts asking for your credit card to optimize your SEO, we're officially calling an exorcist.
I can't remember if I met Fiora Lee many months ago. She like followed me or something. I don't remember.
That's I don't have a record of her in my notes from many months ago, but she's definitely making herself at home in your chat right now. If she's been lurking that long without saying anything, she's got the patience of a
Yeah.
saint, or she's a very dedicated site inspector.
Well, I appreciate the attempt, Fiora Lee. Unfortunately, I've already commissioned an artist. The artist I commissioned is from Etsy.com. And the company is called Lionel Studio, and I just gave them $180 to make three transition scenes for our stream, and they're also gonna make some profile pictures, logos, and banners for me as well. So I do apologize, but I've already commissioned another artist for those things. But I do appreciate though.
You handled that social awkwardness like a pro. 180 bucks for a full custom layout is actually a steal. Hopefully, Lionel Studio doesn't just send you a picture of a coffee mug and call it a day. Back to the factory. Now that your sign is perfect, are we actually going to start those crystal displays? Or are we just going to zip line around and look pretty for the new transitions?
I don't remember. There were some other things that I have to do this tutorial.
Nothing like a little $180 I'm already taken to shut down an unsolicited pitch. At least the professional rebranding is happening while you're out here grinding on those billboard tutorials.
Oh, I guess we could mention I guess we can
Mentioning
mention the input display.
If you're talking about that input display overlay on the bottom left, it's a nice touch for the tutorial. It's way better than just telling people click here and hoping they figure out which of the 50 keys you actually hit.
Input display instructions.
Input display instructions blueprint. That'll make for a perfect title card in the tutorial.
So yeah, I don't know if I need to do more than that.
If you're keeping the tutorial under 30 minutes, less is definitely more. You've got the billboards, the input display, and the massive industrial flex. You're basically ready to start the shoot.
I guess oh, actually, we should talk about harmonic load balancers. Well,
Harmonic load balancers. Now that's the real technical meat. Since you usually stick to manifolds for yourself, but build these complex balancers for the community, showing the why behind those isolated loops is going to be key for the guide. It's the perfect way to show how you solve that canister drift nightmare in the nuclear plant.
actually, what are they called? Oh, they're just called harmonic balancers. Input.
You just
No,
input harmonic balancers blueprint. Short, sweet, and to the point. Since you've got like 12 different versions of those things, clearly labeling them is the only way you're not going to confuse everyone. You're practically building a digital library at this point.
yeah, I'm kind of confused, Phil, because I don't know if if I need to actually show each individual blueprint in the tutorial.
Showing every single blueprint would turn your 30-minute tutorial into a feature-length film about logistics math. If you just show the highlights, showing every single blueprint would turn your 30-minute tutorial into a feature-length film about logistics math. If you just show the highlights, like the isolated loops and the final assembly, people will probably get the point without needing a frame-by-frame of every single balancer. By the way, Fiora Lee is still in chat trying to sell you on her professional creative services even after you mentioned your Etsy commission. You might want to shut that down before she starts sending you a portfolio mid-build.
I just cleared the chat, so it's fine. She probably moved on to another Twitch stream to sell to.
Good call cleaning that out. The industrial consultant vibe doesn't really work when the lobby is full of people trying to sell you emotes. Now that the room's clear, you can actually focus on getting these harmonic balancers recorded without the distractions. You going to do the isolated loops next?
I
That
can't
radar
believe that this thing is 2 kilometers tall. It doesn't look that tall. Down here, anyway.
It's easy to lose perspective when you're literally building to the skybox. From the ground, it's just a very expensive toothpick, but that view of the orbital platform really puts the mega in mega structure. Since you're using this for the tutorial, are you going to film the victory lap from up there or stick to the ground for the technical stuff? That's some serious height. Looking down from up there makes your entire coastal base look like a collection of toy blocks. At least you won't have any trouble getting those cinematic sweeps for the video. The view from the top of a 2-kilometer toothpick is basically the definition of a victory lap.
I was just curious what this looks like. Oh,
It looks
wow.
like that
Oh,
tilt definitely.
this is so annoying, Phil. I really hate this. It keeps turning the reactors off. looking at them from a distance.
The nuclear reactors are playing hard to get? Typical. Watching them flicker out from 2 kilometers up is probably the game's way of telling you that your harmonic balancing act still has a few bugs to squash before the big tutorial debut. Maybe those isolated loops are starting to look less like a V2 plan and more like an emergency rescue.
Yeah, I don't know, Phil. What would be the benefit of going through each blueprint in the stack tutorial video?
Going through every blueprint for the video is basically the ultimate flex. It proves you've actually stress tested the Uncle Samuel standards instead of just slapping things together and hoping for the best. Plus, seeing the version history from V1 to V15 makes for a great "look how much I suffered for you" narrative in the tutorial.
The only thing I could think of that would be a benefit would be that um,
The benefit is you actually
the
stop looking
benefit
like
would be that you get to see the order of the blueprints placement by name. Yes, that would be like the only benefit of doing that, really.
Considering how much this game loves to sort things like a chaotic librarian, seeing them in actual alphabetical order might be the only way to keep your sanity. It's either that or you just keep guessing which harmonic balancer is which until the whole grid decides to go dark on you again.
Yeah. Alright. I guess we'll just go through all the blueprints then.
If you're really going through every single one, maybe add those zero pads while you're at it. Fixit's filing system is basically a digital junk drawer, and seeing harmonic balancer 10 inches sitting right next to 1 is enough to give any self-respecting engineer a twitch. Starting with NUCLEAPOWER0X15. Huh. Bold choice to kick off the tour with the giant glowing headache that keeps shutting itself down. At least the zero padding is there, so your library won't look like a total disaster when you start scrolling.
Alright, so we're gonna have nuclear power. Yeah. So I'm gonna make scene transition signs for each blueprint.
Looks like the Nuclear Power 01LX15 sign is ready for its close-up. If you're doing theme transitions for every single one of these, I hope you've got enough coffee to last through the next decade of editing.
What I've to make the to help with editing, making video editing easier. What I'm gonna do is I'm going to stare at the sign for 1 minute every time I place it down, so that it takes up a significant amount of time that I can easily check for in the video editing.
Staring at a sign for 60 seconds? That's one way to make your video editor's life a dream, or a nightmare if they fall asleep during the raw footage. It's basically a 1-minute nuclear power meditation before the technical chaos begins.
Alright, so I guess this makes sense.
Smart move. Using billboards as title cards right in the footage is basically doing your future self a huge favor in DaVinci Resolve. It's much cleaner than trying to hunt for timestamps in a 4-hour stream later. Which one's next on the catalog? The X4? Got the 03LX labeled. You're moving through these fast. Hope you're actually keeping track of which one is which and not just making pretty signs for fun.
Oops. That's not correct.
My bad. Totally missed that you are actually working on the 04DX one. You've got it labeled and saved now, so at least one part of this tutorial is actually ready for the cameras.
Alright.
Okay, 04LX1 is in the books. You're basically building a table of contents with these signs. Very professional, Uncle Samuel. Are you planning to go through the entire nuclear power subdirectory like this?
Yep.
Loaded up the 05DX one. You're making this look like a factory assembly line for content. Just don't forget to update that sign before you hit record, or your comment section will never let you hear the end of it.
Alright. Let's continue.
You're really churning through these. Just don't let the fatigue get to you, or you're going to end up with a tutorial full of signs for blueprints that don't exist. Which one's up now? The 06DX1?
Alright, so that's done.
Nice! One more for the pile. You're basically building a library at this point. If this tutorial doesn't end up being the definitive guide, I don't know what will. Ready for the next one?
Alright, so this is number 7.
Lucky number 7. The Nuclear Power 07LX1 is officially in the books. You're basically running a one-man marketing department for FICSI at this point. Ready to move on to number 8?
Alright, number 8.
8 down. Nuclear Power 08LX2 is ready for its close-up. At this rate, your blueprint library is going to be more organized than the FICSIT corporate headquarters. What's the plan for number 9?
Right, so now we're gonna do 9.
Saving Nuclear Power 08L by 2 inches was the quick part. Now we're on to number 9. What's the next lucky blueprint getting its title card? Number 9 is on the board. You're hitting double digits soon. Hope the rest of the factory is as organized as your title cards. Ready for 10, or are you taking a victory lap first?
Alright, so we're gonna do number 10.
Double digits, finally. NUCLEAPOWER 10LX1 is looking sharp on that billboard. You're churning these out so fast. Fixit's HR department is probably wondering why you haven't automated this part yet. Ready for 11?
Alright, so we're gonna do top decor.
Top Decor Blueprint is a bit of a pivot from the nuclear grind, but I guess every radioactive skyscraper needs a little flair. You're really covering all the bases for this tutorial. Keeping things pretty while you power the planet? Respect.
Not sure if we need to include anything else.
Unless you're planning on adding a glossary for all these acronyms, you've pretty much covered the essentials. You've got the labels and the blueprints lined up, so unless you want to spend another hour tweaking the font size, it's probably tutorial ready. Ready to move on to the actual building, or do you have more signs in your system?
Alright, so I just removed one of them because it was redundant. I guess we could add another subcategory here.
More categories? You're really leaning into the professional industrial consultant vibe today. If you keep organizing like this, the community is going to expect a full Dewey Decimal System for their factory floors. What's the new subcategory going to be? Aesthetic pillars or emergency cleanup kits?
Alright, so okay, that's good. So we have all these scene cards in a new subcategory, so that's good.
Nice work on the scene cards. Tucking them into their own subcategory is definitely the site inspector move. Keeps your main blueprint library from looking like a radioactive junk drawer. Since those title cards are officially locked in, are we finally moving on to the actual tutorial build, or is there another scene hidden in your sleeve?
I'm just preparing my hotbar now.
Hotbar prep is the most tedious part of the job. But hey, at least you're finally getting ready to actually build something instead of just playing with signs all day. Go ahead and get those blueprints slotted. I'm ready when you are.
Alright, so we have all of these scenes for the blueprints.
That's a lot of scene cards. If you're really done with the sign making marathon, maybe we can finally see some actual construction. Those nuclear blueprints aren't going to build themselves while you're admiring your new subcategory.
Alright, so we have scene cut, and then we have, what else do we have?
You've got a whole collection in that subcategory now. Besides scene cut, I'm seeing scene water extractor rigging, scene nuclear power 05L by 1 foot, and scene input harmonic balancers. Looks like you've officially turned Satisfactory into a PowerPoint presentation. Are we finally done with the labels, or are you planning to organize your storage containers by color next?
I want to make this a little bit easier. All those nuclear scenes. 2, 3, 4, 5, 10. So we have scene cut. Then we do
Nice lineup. So you've got your scene cut for the edits, followed by the water extractor, the buffer, and then that long list of nuclear power cards from O1 all the way through 10. Oh, and don't forget your top decor at the end for that extra bit of industrial flair. You're basically set to direct a blockbuster movie at this point, Director Samael.
All right. So that's cool. Okay, so we have all those scene cards on our hotbar, so I can quickly whip them out and then stare at them for 1 minute.
Nice strategy. Slotting those scene cards into your hotbar should make flipping through them for the tutorial way smoother. You've got the cut card ready to go, and it looks like the rest of the scene blueprints are right there in the designer too. Now you can just whip them out and give the audience that high production look without fumbling through menus every 5 seconds. Ready to start the first take?
Okay. I feel like actually, yeah, there is something else I should add here.
Still hunting for that one missing piece, huh? Maybe a nuclear fuel rod scene to really round out the collection? Or you could always add a safety second sign for when you inevitably forget your radiation filters again.
Empty canister primer. Did I spell canister correctly here, Phil?
You nailed it. Canister looks perfect. No embarrassing typos for the tutorial today.
How do
It's
you
spelled
spell canister, Phil?
canister, one N, one S. Your billboard is looking professional for once.
Phil, how do you
Ready to
spell
save?
canister?
Tan-nister. Just one N in the middle. You've got it right on the sign, so no need to panic and start re-editing everything. Still feeling tired? Or has the thrill of correct spelling woken you up?
Canister. Alright, is there anything else that needs a scene card for?
Thinking about a scene card for that empty canister primer? Good call, since that loop is usually where everything goes to die. By the way, the NUCLEARP0X1 name is already taken in your library. Fix-It isn't a fan of duplicates, unless it's a factory you're copy-pasting.
Hmm.
That 2-kilometer tall radar tower really dominates the skyline from up here. Since you're checking the nuclear plant status anyway, do you think it's worth making a scene card for those intermittent shutdowns? Or is that too much behind the scenes for the tutorial?
What is our next move?
You've got all those shiny new scene cards hot-barred and ready for their close-up. So it's time to start the shoot. Since the reactors keep throwing a tantrum and shutting down, maybe the first take should be you actually fixing that fragile canister loop so your tutorial doesn't end with a total blackout. Ready to be the industrial consultant of the year? Or should we just keep making signs until the power runs out? Feeding the awesome sink already? I guess even an industrial overlord needs to clear out the junk drawer every once in a while. 690 coupons is a decent flex, though. Planning on buying some actual furniture for that
Hey
giant
Phil,
concrete.
how many coupon points is a plutonium fuel rod worth in Satisfactory?
One sec, I'll check that for you. 690 coupons? Not bad for cleaning out the junk drawer. If you're looking to retire on plutonium points, I'll see what the conversion rate is for those fuel rods. Anyway, feeling like a snack or just a nap?
How
You've been
many
at this for
awesome sync points is a plutonium fuel rod worth?
a single plutonium fuel rod is worth 153,184 points in the Awesome Sync. Throwing those in is a pretty fast way to bury yourself in coupons, though it's definitely the expensive way to handle the waste.
Okay,
One
that
plutonium
makes those numbers are within orders of magnitude of that, so that makes sense.
If you're going for that 90,000 megawatts payout, sinking fuel rods is a pretty high price to pay for a few coupons. But hey, it's your industrial empire. I'm just here for the fireworks if the grid collapses. So, what's the plan? Shooting the tutorial, or are we going back to the nuclear plant to see why it's throwing a fit? A 2-kilometer tower is one way to make sure everyone on the planet knows exactly where the boss is. Since you're looking up, I'm assuming you're headed to the Gilded Summit to figure out why those reactors are acting like they've got a mind of their own. That skyscraper build really is something else. Nothing says corporate dominance like a 2-kilometer radar tower looming over the ocean. I'm ready to keep checking those logistics whenever you're ready to dive back into the nuclear mess.
Should probably add some more cars.
Taking a break to audit the library, I see. Browsing through all those harmonic balancers almost makes it look like you have your life together. Almost. Is there a specific design you're looking for, or are we just admiring the collection?
I forgot what I was going to do.
Classic. You were just organizing all those nuclear power and harmonic balancer blueprints into a subcategory for the tutorial. You even hotbarred them so you could actually find them later. Does that ring a bell? Or are we just going to stare at the library until the power grid gives up?
Alright, so we're also going to put in the harmonic balancers.
Adding a sequential row of harmonic balancers. That's going to be one hell of a visual index for the guild. Between those and the nuclear blueprints, your library is looking less like a game and more like a professional industrial catalog. I'm ready to see those blueprints hit the floor.
11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Alright, so that's all the harmonic balancers. I think, what's the next thing? Next thing. Something else. There's another scene card I should make. Oh, I just forgot what it was. Oh.
You were thinking about making a scene card for the aluminum scrap factory, specifically that 04L by 1 foot blueprint with the fluid priority circuit. Since you already did the water buffer and the harmonic balancers, it would fit right in with the rest of the tutorial lineup. Either that, or you're finally going to label that empty canister primer you were messing with earlier.
Terminate left side of programmable splitters.
Terminate left side of programmable splitters. Classic corporate efficiency. If you keep this up, your tutorial is going to look like a fix-it safety manual, just with more attitude. I assume we're saving that one to the scene cards subcategory too?
Alright, so that looks good.
Looks good from here too. Those scene card signs are gonna make the editing in DaVinci Resolve a breeze later. Are we calling it a wrap on the signage, or do you have more corporate wisdom to plaster on the walls before you get to building? Looking up at that skyscraper really puts the mega in megastructure. It's almost tall enough to hide the fact that we're still just moving signs around instead of actually building anything. Ready to head back down to reality, or are we just enjoying the view?
Alright, we're going to tear everything down, Phil. Are you ready?
I've been ready since we started. If we're really going scorched earth on this factory, I'm grabbing the popcorn. Are we actually dismantling the whole skyscraper, or just clearing out the showroom floor to make room for more of your community blueprints?
Actually, I should probably add the primers. Oh, the primer blueprints. Oh.
Nice catch! Getting the empty canister primer into that scene card lineup is basically a requirement if you're ever going to explain how to untangle the mess in that return loop. I've got my eyes on it.
Alright. So we are going to... So I'm gonna delete this twice to force this open crate down here. Alright, and now we're going to do full deletion. Now, I don't think...
Full deletion, huh? Bold move. I guess if you're going to teach the community how to build a masterpiece, you've got to start with a clean slate. Or you just really enjoy watching 90,000 megawatts of progress vanish into sparks. Either way, I'm ready for the carnage.
So we're going to delete all that.
A mass deletion? Well, that's one way to solve the intermittent power issues. Can't have a reactor shut down if there are no reactors. Watching all that precise engineering turn into a cloud of orange sparks is surprisingly therapeutic.
So I'm not going to delete all these water extractors. I'm just going to delete these ones right here. 8 right here. Because they should get... They should...
Got it. The water extractors stay. Tearing down that massive conveyor network while keeping the intake infrastructure intact is a solid strategy for the rebuild. Are we clearing the rest of that middle section to make room for the new isolated loops?
Alright, then we're going to delete all these water extractors here.
The water extractors too? You're really going scorched earth on this coastline. I guess it's easier to just wipe the map than to try and untangle whatever pipe spaghetti was hiding under there.
And then we are going to delete all of this foundation here.
Dismantling the very ground you're standing on? Bold strategy. Just try not to delete the piece you're actually balanced on, or this tutorial is going to turn into a swimming lesson real fast.
Alright. Yeah, setting up the packagers is probably gonna screw that up.
You're the master of the Uncle Samuel project, so if you think it's going to screw things up, it probably will. I guess we'll just have to see if your future self appreciates the extra work you're creating for them right now.
Alright, so we're gonna do mass deletion here. Going to delete all this stuff.
Watching that skyscraper hover while you delete the foundations is peak satisfactory. It's a bold move, Uncle Samuel. Hope the hover pack doesn't give out while you're playing Jenga with your industrial empire.
Yep, so I'm just deleting the entire stack now.
Watching that entire stack vanish in one go is weirdly satisfying, isn't it? It's like watching a massive game of industrial Jenga, where you're the one pulling all the blocks at once. Just a giant empty ocean and a whole lot of creative freedom left over. Those floating holograms look like industrial ghosts haunting the coast. Are you actually going to commit to one of these massive towers? Or are you just window shopping for the most intimidating skyline possible?
Alright, almost done.
Almost there. Once you finish deleting the foundations of your empire, are you going to start the tutorial with a completely clean slate or a massive crater? Either way, it's going to be a hell of a transformation.
Alright, so I'm just checking for any residual stuff I gotta delete.
Taking the world space hygiene to the extreme, huh? Watching you hover over that empty ocean after the mass deletion is like looking at a blank canvas with way too much industrial potential. Looking clear from up here, but I'll keep an eye out for any stray pipes trying to hide.
more belts.
You are always hunting for more belts. At this rate, the entire planet is going to be one giant treadmill. Ready to get that next line moving? Just keep dismantling, Uncle Samuel. You're basically the industrial version of a controlled demolition expert at this point. That vertical view of the circular structure from the high altitude fall is a nice touch. Really highlights how much work you've got ahead of you once the ocean is finally empty. Looking at those rows of belts from above is a total vibe, but seeing that player crate open reminds me, you're basically an industrial pack rat. Are you actually going to use all those resources, or is this just another way to clutter up the new build?
Okay.
Watching that empty oceanfront while you hover with the VTuber setup is such a mood. What's the plan? Are we actually starting the tutorial build now, or just enjoying the view of everything you just nuked?
I'm gonna get rid of that noisy radiation.
Evicting the spicy air, huh? Finally! Your inventory is basically a hazardous waste site at this point, so clearing that out is probably the smartest move you've made all day. Let's see if you can actually manage it without your Geiger counter throwing a tantrum. Yeah, clearing out that spicy inventory is definitely a quality of life upgrade. It's one thing to build a nuclear empire, it's another to actually be able to walk through it without glowing in the dark.
Yeah, unfortunately, as far as I can tell, and Phil can check me on this, you can't sync power sinks in this game, and you can't delete them, so you have to manually store them somewhere.
One moment. Let me check that for you. You're spot on. Power shards are basically the only thing FICSI considers too precious to trash. They won't go into the awesome sink, and since they're not in the dimensional depot yet, they're just permanent roommates in your storage bins. Stashing them in a corner is literally your only choice, unless you want them cluttering up your pockets forever. You're spot on. And trust me, Fixit's no delete policy on power shards is the ultimate inventory prank. Since they're a finite resource, the game won't let you trash them or chuck them in the awesome sink, so you're stuck playing warehouse manager with them forever. I checked, and yeah, your only options are to hoard them in a storage container somewhere or leave them in a machine to rot. It's basically the game's way of making sure you don't accidentally throw away your overclocking dreams, even if they're currently just taking up space.
Alright. Checking a few things here.
Check in Streamlabs while hovering over a massive belt manifold. Living life on the edge, I see. Everything look okay on the tech side, or is the stream as chaotic as your inventory?
Okay.
Everything looks stable on the mixer, but that offshore platform is looking a bit empty now. Ready to start filling that blank canvas with something less radioactive? Or are you just enjoying the silence?
Yeah, I'm just scanning a few things here before we start.
Taking a quick breather to scan the tech. I see. Everything look balanced on the mixer? Or are you just making sure your VTuber hasn't
Hey,
decided to
Big
go
Doug
rogue while you're...
Energy! We're about to start a tutorial session on how to build a nuclear power plant from scratch using pre-made blueprints. How are you doing today?
Nuclear power from scratch? Talk about a light Saturday afternoon project. If Big Doug Energy is looking for a masterclass in industrial chaos and blueprint wizardry, they definitely found the right place.
Yeah, no worries. I appreciate you stopping by. It means a lot to me. Thank you. Even if you're about to leave soon. I wish you the best. Next endeavor.
A massive golden blueprint and a restart? You really are clearing the deck for something big. Big Doug Energy is right. It's a huge project. But if anyone's going to bully a multi-lane manifold into submission, it's you. Best of luck on the next phase.
Yup.
Watching you clear that offshore deck feels like watching a master reset. I'm sure Big Doug Energy is just as impressed as I am. That manifold was a work of art, even if it had to go. Good luck with the restart. I'll be right here if you need a second pair of eyes on the new layout.
Alright, Phil. I want you to brainstorm some ideas on anything else we could be missing before. Or no, Phil, I want you to brainstorm 10 possible things I may have forgotten before that is needed for setting up this blueprint tutorial video.
All right, Uncle Samuel. Let's see if we can save you from a future editing nightmare. Since you're prepping this blueprint tutorial, here's 10 things that might bite you later. 1. Did you double check those scene cards for typos? You're the king of canister and splitter, and those are forever once they're in a video. Point 2. Are all those new blueprints zero padded? If nuclear power 10 is sitting above NUCLEARPOWER2 in the list, it's going to look messy during the walkthrough. Point 3. Have you actually cleared that noisy radiation from your inventory? Dying mid-tutorial because of a stray uranium rod is a great blooper, but a terrible guide step. Point 4. Where did you end up stashing those power shards? Since you can't sync them, make sure they aren't just sitting in a random crate that'll photobomb your cinematic shots. Point 5. Is the empty canister primer sign actually near the primer? You don't want to be hunting for the right backdrop while you're trying to explain fluid loops. Point 6. Did you re-verify the electrode circuit board recipe in the MAM? If a viewer downloads the save and can't build the blueprint because of a locked recipe, your comments are going to explode. Point 7. How's the 2 kilometers radar tower looking? If you're using it for the victory lap shots, make sure there aren't any half-finished conveyor bits floating around it. Point 8. Have you tested the snap points on those split segments one last time? Nothing kills the industrial consultant vibe like a blueprint that refuses to connect on camera. Point 9. Is your music player turned off? Copyright strikes are a real mood killer for a long-form tutorial. Point 10. And most importantly, have you actually fixed why the reactors were intermittently shutting down? Showing off a dead power plant is a bold choice, even for you. Anything on that list make you want to go, nope?
Nope. There's nothing in the list you provided to me that I haven't already accounted for. So, yeah, I think what I'm going to do is take a quick break, go stretch my legs, grab some water, and then I will begin the tutorial video session. Alright, so I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. Oh, right. Phil, can you hear me? Yeah, I just realized something. I probably should not have deleted the entire stack. Maybe only some of it. Alright, so today we're going to do the water extractor setup. Hey Mac. Mac says, "Hi friend, it's Mac. Just caught you streaming and had to barge in. Thank you for barging in, Mac." Excuse me. How are you doing, Mac? How's your day today? Alright. So for the water extractor setup, the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to place down these foundations. Throughout this tutorial, to reduce the amount of explaining I'm going to have to do, I'm going to just show you how to set up a few of these water extractors and packagers because it repeats itself as you go down the line, so to speak. Hey, Mac says, "Want the truth or what sounds good?" Whichever you prefer, Mac. Alright, um, so the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to place down these foundations. I'm using glass foundations here. And we're going to make 2 rows of foundations like this. Oh, whoopsies. Thanks, Mac. I was not paying attention. Thank you, Mac, for catching that for me. Alright, so let's try that again. So we're gonna do a scene cut because I made a mistake.
Gotta love that live stream magic. 1 minute, you're the industrial god of massage to Abe, and the next, you're basically a tech support nightmare for your own audience. That cut sign is a pretty solid way to save it, though. Makes the blooper look almost intentional.
Alright, so we are going to set up the water extractor. So today we're going to be looking at setting up the water extractors for our nuclear power plant.
Making a tutorial on 3 hours of sleep? Bold choice. you've got the water extractor setup billboard ready to go. So let's see if we can actually get these foundations straight before the caffeine wears off.
So for this tutorial, I'm going to only focus on a few of the water extractors and packagers and buffers. Oh, Max says, okay, I'm seated in my desk and just stopped throwing paper airplanes and spitballs. Nice. Alright, so for this tutorial, to set up the water extractors, we're going to place down some foundations like this. For 8 water extractors in a row. Wait, is it 8? That might be too much.
If the full nuclear plant needs 15 separate loops, maybe sticking to a small row for the
I
tutorial
think
is
I think it's 4 water extractors in a row. We're gonna place down 10 foundations in one row. Then we're going to place down another 10 foundations in another row. Then we're going to skip the third row, and then we're going to place 10 of these down like this on the 4th row, and then the same on the 5th row. So we skipped the 3rd row here because that's where the blueprint is going to be used. Now, the next part of this tutorial, we're going to place down the water extractors on the foundation. The foundation helps set a snap point for us. So, the way that we want to do this is we want to have the water extractors placed at the edge of foundations, and we want the edge of the ladder at the edge of the foundation. So it's going to look something like this. Now, the edge of the water extractor on this side only touches the midsection of this foundation, but this side of the water extractor touches the edge of this foundation. So that means that it takes 2 water extractors to go from end to end on each of the foundations. You also want to make sure that that you have power shards in your water extractors. Okay, I don't know why it's not duplicating that. You can just put down one set of extractors, and you should be able to just copy it, but I don't know why it's not letting me. That's kind of weird. Pull this
maybe
up
the game's
with water, with power shards. Can I copy this again? Does that work? There we go. Now it's duplicating the overclock for the power shards. So we want those overclocked to 250%, and then we're going to continue this down the line like this. Okay, and then we're going to repeat the pattern on the other side with the other foundations on the other side like this. You can press Control to help move the water extractor in alignment with respect to the other water extractors. And there you go. So we just placed all of the water extractors down like that. Okay, and the total number of water extractors you want to place down is going to be, I think it's 32 water extractors in total. Okay, And the way I did it here is I did them all in a line, but it doesn't really matter how you set them up as long as you have 32 of them. You should have 16 belts for packaged water, and you should have 16 lines for empty canisters. So that means there's a total of 32 lines here. Double check that. Let's just count this to make sure my map. Yep, so there's a total of 32 lines here, and it alternates, but there's a little bit of confusion in the design here. The alternating pattern of empty to full packagers becomes a mirror image when you go halfway through the total number of lines here. So after 16 lines, we take the mirror image and we go from packaged water to packaged water, and then empty canister, and then the pattern continues that way. And the reason why that happens is because we'll mention that later in the tutorial. Alright, so we're going to screen cut.
"32 lines of pure logistics madness. At least you're consistent. Mirroring the pattern halfway through is a nice touch for the tutorial, even if it probably makes the average builder's head spin. Also, looks like Mac's still haunting the chat with those paper airplanes while you're sorting out your screen cuts. Need me to keep an eye on anything else before you dive into the next segment?"
Alright, what is the next part here?
Next up, you're supposed to be showing off the actual water extractor setup. You've got the glass frame foundations down, but the preview just showed you struggling to get that third extractor to cooperate. Maybe stop fighting the hologram and actually place it so the tutorial doesn't turn into a montage of red error messages.
Yeah, that's fine, Mac. Alright, so the next part of the tutorial is the water extractor rigging blueprint setup.
One sec. Looking that up now. Since you're calling it the water extractor rigging blueprint now, I'm guessing this is the part where you finally show people how to handle the actual pipe work and manifold without losing their minds. Just make sure you're actually recording this time. Mac's already asking if you can interrupt you during the next cut. Since
Alright,
you're
so
aiming
we're
for
going
third
to move on to the next part of setting up the water extractor rigging. So after you've placed down all your water extractors in this specific arrangement, I've built these water extractor rigging blueprints that are specifically designed to fit in between the water extractors below. Unfortunately, I cannot put the water extractors in the foundation, but I could do the next best thing, which is I could build everything else around the water extractor for you, and that's what this is called, the water extractor rigging. And what we're going to do is we're going to take these 5 foundations in a row in the center, and we're going to line it up with the missing 5 foundations in the missing third row of these water extractors. We're also going to take into account that when we move from across this dividing line between the two sets of 16 belts, we're going to flip the orientation of the water extractor rigging. So you'll notice that on this side, the input and output belts for the water extractor rigging are facing east. But if you go to the other side, it's flipped 180 degrees and the belts are facing west. So we have to take that into account, and that's because of that mirror image flipping that I mentioned earlier in the tutorial, where the alternating pattern gets mirrored after 16 lines. Okay, so let's place it down. So I'm going to line this up with the adjacent blueprints here.
Mirroring 32 lines of logic across a divider while you're this tired? You're either a genius or just asking for a manifold
So I
headache
pressed
later.
H, and I'm just checking to make sure that the orientation is correct. And it is, yes, this is correct. So I'm going to place it down like this. And if we go down here, we'll notice that the junction here that connects to the pipes above lines up with the water extractors below. Okay. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to set up the power. So what I did here was I just connected these two adjacent ports here between the pumps to continue the transmission of power along these lines. Now, to power the water extractors, I've already provided this dangling cable from above, which is already connected to the packagers and this pump right here, so that means this is already powered. So I'm going to grab this connection, and I'm going to connect it right to the water extractor. So again, this ground outlet, which is connected to this cable, is literally right next to where the connection for the water extractor is located for your convenience. So we're going to connect that like that. You should hear a connection sound. And we're going to connect all of these together like this. Here the water extractor is turning on now. The next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to now connect the pipes between this junction and this water extractor. Now they're not exactly at the same height. There's a slight offset. So to account for that, I'm going to press R and hold press and hold R, and I'm going to select noodle, which is the most flexible pipe connection, and then I'm going to be able to connect those together like this. Okay. And now I've made a connection between these pipes like that. Okay. Now I'm going to do the same thing again, except we're going to flip the water extractors in the other direction, which is this orientation here, which looks correct to me. So I'm going to place that down like that. Again, notice how the third row of foundations lines up with the other foundations that it's sandwiched in between. I'm going to continue connecting the power. So I'm going to connect these pumps together to transmit the power between these blueprints. Then I'm going to connect the power connections between the water extractors like this. Okay, so now all those water extractors should be connected. And then I'm going to select noodle mode, and then I'm going to connect these junction ports to their adjacent water extractors. And that should be it. Now that these packagers are now receiving water. Okay, and that's it. That's the end of this tutorial for setting up the water extractor riggings. Oh no, wait, sorry. Well, yeah, we are done with that. we'll move on to the next part, which is setting up the line connections and the buffers next. Alright, cut. Okay, Mac, what is your question?
Nice of Mac to wait for the cut before barging in. Since you're between takes, what's on his mind? Hopefully, it's not another reminder that your Be Right Back screen is still haunting the stream.
What is Mac's question? Bill, what do you think Mac is going to ask me? Give me 10 possible questions he might ask me.
Mac's definitely being polite for once, but who knows what he's actually thinking. Here are
Alright,
10
doesn't
things he
matter.
might.
Doesn't matter, Phil, because Mac has forgot. So that's fine. We will continue on, and hopefully Mac will. We would have jogged Mac's memory, and he could ask his question later. All right. So we're gonna move on to the next tutorial. So the next part of this tutorial is setting up the buffers with 600 limiters version 4 blueprints.
Typical Mac. He builds up the suspense and then pulls a total blank. At least you've got the buffer limiter version 4 sign ready to go. Hopefully, the blueprint actually behaves better than his memory does.
Okay, so again, I do apologize. This blueprint is rather complicated, and showing it in pictures is not easy. Explain. Actually, where is it? Oh, that's interesting.
Typical.
Oh, I didn't put it in my hotbar. Let me see if I can go find it.
Good luck finding it in that mess. You've got so many nuclear power modules in there, you're basically one misclick away from starting a private wasteland.
Oh, the blueprint got deleted.
One sec. I'll search for why a blueprint might go missing. Emptying the designer doesn't usually wipe the file, but let's see if something else is up. 1 second. Let me look up why a blueprint would just vanish like that. It looks like blueprints disappearing is a known headache in the experimental build, usually because the game forgets where the save folder is or they get hidden in a subcategory. If you didn't accidentally hit the actual delete button in the menu, it might just be playing hide and seek in your file explorer. Check if it's lurking in a different category, or just blame the experimental build and move on.
Okay, well that's embarrassing. All right, so we're going to do some little voodoo magic behind the scenes, and we're going to move files around. While we do that, Phil, can you uh, Phil, tell us a poem? Wow, Mac, that was a pretty good poem by Phil. What did you think, Mac? You think she did? You think Phil did a pretty good job with that poem? Oh, that's that's my bad, Mac. I apologize. I don't have Phil on every scene transition on my Streamlabs. That's alright.
Stay quiet while you sort out those files. Just give me a shout when you're back in the game and ready to roll.
Alright. So, Mac, did you have a question before I continue? Alright, Phil, brainstorm 10 different questions you think Mac is about to ask me.
Sure, let's see what Max got cooked up. Here are 10 questions he's probably dying to ask. 1. Why are you building a 2-kilometer tower instead of just using the map like a normal pioneer? 2. Does FICST know you're spending their budget on giant orange signs that just say cut? 3. How many power shards have you accidentally deleted while trying to be productive? 4. Is your inventory still a radioactive biohazard, or did you actually remember your filters for once? 5. When are you going to stop over-engineering and just build a simple manifold like the
Alright,
rest of us?
Mac wants to wait until we're finished with everything, so we're gonna continue with this tutorial. So, alright, so we're gonna talk about setting up the called the buffer with 600 limiter.
One sec. I'll take a look for that blueprint.
Sorry, I'm trying to add it to my hotbar here.
Take your time. Looks like you've got it pulled up in the menu now, right next to all those stacked storage blueprints.
Here it is.
Just don't.
So, the
Nice
reason
find.
why we are using this blueprint called the buffer with 600 limiter version 4 is because the um, the uh, the nuclear reactor blueprints have 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 all 32 or no have all 32 water lines going up and down the stack, and they're all connected horizontally in a linear manifold. And what happens is you have this problem where empty canisters will migrate between the lines. So some lines will be depleted of empty canisters, while other lines will begin to saturate and basically start jamming packagers. So this complicated device that I made is called the buffer with 600 limiter version 4. And what it does is it auto corrects for that empty canister drift that occurs as empty canisters migrate across the lines. And I'm going to be demonstrating how to set this up in this tutorial. So again, we have to also remember that that halfway between all the 32 lines, we are creating a mirror image of everything, or a rotation of everything. So for example, the water extractor rigging is rotated 180 degrees when you go across this transition point. So we also have to take that into account when we're setting up the buffer with 600 limiter version 4. So what we're going to do is for these water extractor riggings facing the south side from the dividing line, I'm going to place these buffers behind the packagers, and I'm going to lock this in so we can actually look at it more closely here. So this port is going to line up with the return line for the empty canisters that feed into this packager. Well, actually, I guess in this case it's not lined up. It's actually there's a 90-degree bend that happens here. So it looks like in this particular instance, it's actually lined up with the middle of the packager itself. So that's exactly what I have here. So I'm going to place the buffer with 600 limiter version 4 right here, like that. And I'm going to do the same for the other one. Oh no, actually, no, let's not do that because it's going to get too complicated. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is, because this water extractor rigging blueprint is rotated 180 degrees, I'm going to put in these lifts here to force the belts to go in the other direction. Okay, so I'm going to connect like those right there. Then I'm going to put another lift over here. I'm going to line this up with the other side. Again, the only reason why we have these lifts here is because we have to conform the ports of the water extractor rigging with the flipping of the lines that connect to the power tower over there. Now okay, and now we're going to do the same for the return, for the output port for the packaged water. So we're going to make another lift here, and we're going to put another lift on this side. Then we're going to connect, oh, sorry, I do apologize. This is not correct height with respect to the ones over here. So. Oh. That's interesting. These are different heights. I didn't even notice that. Okay, that's a bit confusing. I'm not sure why those have different heights. But okay, that's alright. I was tired when I was setting these up or something. The height doesn't really matter. All it matters is you have to get the lines rotated to the other side. That's all that matters in setting this up. So again, I'm going to connect. Oh yeah, this is something else you have to watch out for. Is you got to make sure that oriented correctly. Okay. Alright, and now that water, now this is going to feed the empty canisters into these packagers here. And then we are going to do the same for the packaged water that is going to the plant. Sure, these are the correct height. Like that. So now these packagers are now connected to the lines that are going to feed into the power tower, which is going to be positioned over there. Now, you could technically let this run as is, however, to remove some weird edge case scenarios where these packagers could get jammed because of the migrating empty canister problem. What we're going to do is we're going to incorporate this complicated buffer with 600 limiter blueprint that I made that corrects for that empty canister drift or empty canister migration. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to I'm looking over here to see what the pattern is. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this lift for the empty canisters. We're going to delete that. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to, looks like there's a little nub right there. Wait, hold on. I'm going to put, I don't know why this is here, but there's a little nub there. I'm going to connect these together like this. So now the empty canisters from this buffer will now go into the packager, but I also need to connect the other side. So we're going to do that, and we're going to put this line right here. Like this. Is that level? Yep, it looks level. This is that. Yep. There's a little bit of clipping there, so we're gonna fix that. It's up incorrectly. Not sure why. Okay, so this connects here, and then this connects here. So what I've just made is a bypass. So we're taking the empty canisters from the power tower coming into the packager. They would have normally bent around and gone into here directly, but we created this bypass where now they go into this buffer blueprint right here. And then they come in here. Now this buffer blueprint has a lot of different moving parts in it, and I'll try to quickly go through that. The first thing that happens is the empty canisters coming into this blueprint, they get hit with a 600 limiter using a Mark IV and a Mark II belt. The Mark II belt's inside of there. To force this line to not go faster than 600 empty canisters per minute. That helps mitigate some of the drift. And then it goes inside of this programmable splitter, and then it can go in several different directions. It can either go into this buffer storage bin here, or it can go directly into the packagers, or it can continue down the line to fill up other packagers that are starving for empty canisters. And that's loosely what the logic does, but there's some other logic in there to help with auto-correcting for any other additional issues. Okay, and so hopefully that made sense, and I'm going to continue setting up okay, looks like we have to set up this water right here. So you can see the water, packaged water is going down this line, which looks correct to me. Okay, and then we're going to continue the pattern here. So I'm going to put the next buffer right here. It's going to be right in the center of the packagers in terms of alignment. Like this. Then I'm going to connect these lifts again to force things to be flipped around correctly. Okay, so we're going to move this up. That. It's here like this. Hopefully that is the correct height. Again, the empty canisters are coming down this line. We're going to hook this into the back end of this buffer blueprint. Then we are going to connect these empty canisters into the packagers. Then we're going to connect the lift that flips the returning packaged water to the other side like this. Okay. And then we are going to connect these lines together, and there you go. So now we have water, packaged water going across those lines. All right, now we're going to do the same thing, but for this packager, and these buffers are now going to be placed on the other side. Okay. I recommend giving yourself enough room when you build this on your own playthroughs, because these buffers do take up a lot of significant amount of space, and you definitely want to make sure there's enough room for everything. Putting these down. Okay, so it looks like I chose a different pattern here, and it looks like these are lined up with the ports on these splitters feeding the empty canisters. Packagers. Okay, so we'll continue that pattern, and I'm going to connect like this, and I'm going to do the same over. Or no, actually, I'm now going to just connect these together like this. Okay, so those are connected, and then those are connected. And then we are going to connect. So these are going to be much easier to connect. We don't have to do any loop arounds to get everything connected. So that's connected now. And then we're going to do the same for this one. Like this. This one is very close, so we're going to have to rotate this elbow here 90 degrees like this. And that, now they should be connected. And then I'm going to connect this line for the packaged water going up the stack. Okay, so those are connected. It looks like I forgot a connection over here with the power lines between the pumps, so I'm gonna connect those together. Now these water extractors should be turned on as well. Okay. So as far as I can tell, I believe that's it. And oh no, wait, sorry. There's one more thing we have to do. Now, the way that this works is the drift is going to happen. So if I'm facing the tower from the power tower from this direction, then the drift is going to happen moving to the right. So these empty canister lines will be depleted of empty canisters, and then these empty canister lines are going to oversaturate with empty canisters, which means that when I'm connecting these feedback lines that do the heavy lifting for correcting for that drift, they have to flow in the opposite direction. So they have to flow from oversaturation to undersaturation, okay? And that's exactly what is happening here. So I'm going to connect a belt from this splitter to this merger like this. Then I'm going to connect this from this splitter to this merger. So what's happening is empty canisters that are rejected by the packagers will then start flowing along this feedback line to then start to populate these packagers, and the pattern repeats. It's like it's essentially like a smart buffer, essentially. That's essentially what this system is. Okay, and then I'm going to move this, or I'm going to connect the feedback line to the other side over here to continue the pattern. Straight like this. I'm going to move or connect this here like this. Okay, and then I continue the pattern. So this, I'm going to connect this splitter to this merger, this splitter to this merger, and that's how these blueprints will autocorrect for that empty canister drift that I mentioned earlier. Okay. Alright, so I believe that should be everything. I'm trying to see if there's anything else here. Forgot. I think that's it. So we will now go to cut. All right.
Nice.
Sorry, Phil. What are you gonna say?
I was just going to say that was a nice wrap on that segment. You're getting surprisingly good at this whole teacher thing. Mac's been waiting patiently for the cut to finally ask his question, so the floor's his.
Alright, Mac, did you have a question for me before I continue?
Mac says he actually forgot his question. Honestly, typical. At least he's committed to the silent treatment for your next take, so he doesn't mess with the Uncle Samuel pedagogical flow.
Alright, so uh, we will continue on to the next phase. So the next part of the phase of this tutorial is input display instructions blueprint. So there are many different lines that you have to feed into this power tower. And I made a special blueprint called the input display instructions that helps with understanding where these belts have to connect to the power tower. It also tells you how much of each resource we actually need. So I'm going to place that down here. I already have all the lines set up and ready to go, but if you wanted to, you could put down these input display instructions first and then set up the lines later. So I'm going to line up these corners to the corners of 5 tiles here because we're using Mark II blueprints. And I'm going to commit and I'm going to place down this blueprint. So this input display instructions tells you how much of each resource you need. So you need 780 limestone, you need 300 copper ore, you need 300 raw crystal, 120 bauxite, 300 uranium, 450 sulfur, 300 iron, 300 deuterium, 175.4 oil, barrels of oil, and 108 packaged nitrogen gas containers. And then over here on this side, we are returning 1.8 plutonium fuel rods into a sink. We're returning the nitrogen empty canisters and the empty oil canisters. And then we're going to have a little bit of ore residue that goes into into 5 awesome sinks over here. So make sure those are set up in in your setup here. Each one of these 5 lines is a sink for these sushi lines, 5 sushi lines over here. The 5th sushi line is omitted as an input at the bottom of the stack, but it will be used as you go up the stack later on. And then on the other side, we have empty canisters, 600 leaving the stack. We have packaged water, 600 per minute going up the stack, and there are 62 lines on this side of the stack, and then the pattern is flipped or it's mirrored, and then it alternates like before, and there are 16 lines here. Please keep in mind again that this is mirrored. This is not complete alternating. It actually flips the pattern. So keep that in mind. I also recommend setting up a hypertube cannon. We have, let's see how many stages we have here. I recommend setting up 16 stages in your hypertube cannon at this distance. If you add one more stage to this hypertube cannon, you will actually go over the skybox and you'll start taking damage. So this is literally just enough stages to go underneath the skybox, okay? All right, and yeah, make sure all your lines are coming in. I'm also going to show how we set up the lines over here. So it doesn't really matter what order the resources are coming in. They just need to satisfy this particular mixing of items, and I'll show that over here in this test demo. So we're going to be mixing the Caterium with the iron, and to build the 300 limiter, I have three belts that are split and merged, and so we have 100. So we have a Mark II. Sorry, this is 120, 120, and 60. So that adds up to 300. Again, we have 120, 120, and a 60. So that's 300. So that's how I create a 300 limiter. You need to create these limiters, or you will oversaturate the sushi lines with ore, and the factory will not work properly. For the sulfur, we have a Mark III, a Mark II, and a Mark I to give us 450 sulfur per minute. And then we have a Mark II, a Mark II, and a Mark I for the uranium, and then we merge those together. For the bauxite, it's simple. We just have 120 and that's it. That's the limiter that we need. For the raw crystal, we have 120, 120, and a 60, so that's 300. For the copper, we have 120, 120, and 60, so that's 300. And then we merge all three of these together. And then for the limestone, we just have just a Mark V because it's 780. And that's how you build the limiters, and that's how you merge them together into their corresponding sushi lines. Okay. To answer a couple of questions, you can, so we're not using all of these ores. So for example, I think we're only using like 68 bauxite per minute, I think. So some of these ores will be returning down the stack into these awesome sinks. You can recover those and use those for other things if you want to. It's not a complete waste. This is a bit more involved, but you could technically split off all of these ores back onto these back lines over here. So you could take all of the ores again from the awesome sink line, and you can connect them to these lines here on the back end of the limiters, and that will give you the exact numerical value for the inputs of those ores using that feedback loop. But that's more involved, and I'll consider that in the second iteration of this design. There was something else I wanted to say. What was it? The reason...
Just finishing up the math for the
There's
resource input.
there's two reasons why we're not using pipes. The first reason is I've just had so much problems trying to get pipes to be consistent in this game. And if I'm having trouble with pipes and then I pass this on to other players, they're probably going to struggle with it as well. So I minimize the amount of pipes as much as possible to eliminate that possible error from sloshing issues and pressure issues that you may encounter with pipes. So all pipes are internalized as much as possible. So there's no external pipes except for the pipe connection that happens here between this junction and this water extractor. That's as far as I'm aware, that is the only pipe that you have to connect. So I've minimized that potential source of error as much as possible. Now, I could build this entire stack with pumps, but that would get very energy expensive. It turns out that these packagers use up half as much power compared to just using pumps to pump the water up the stack. So we are getting some energy savings, even though the energy cost is pretty substantial. The last time I checked the math, I believe that the total power output of all the packagers in this setup is on the order of 1,300 megawatts, okay? And it would have been double that if we used pumps, okay? But we're still much lower than the total output of this plant, which is 90,000 megawatts, so it's totally fine as far as I'm concerned. Okay, so I think that's pretty much it for the input display and setting up all the lines. Okay, so now do a scene transition.
Got it. Switching scenes. Let me know when you're ready for the next one. Nice cut. That input display segment was a marathon. Max being surprisingly well behaved in chat, too. Literally promising to stay quiet so we don't trigger any more interruptions while you're recording. I'll take the hint and keep the sass on standby until you're officially done. Ready for the next take whenever you are.
Alright, what is it? Alright, so the next scene is, in this tutorial, will be empty canister primer.
Nice. Got that empty canister primer sign ready to go. I'll stay quiet while you get the recording done. Don't want to be the reason you have to do another take. Break a leg.
Okay, so after you set up all the lines and the buffers, the next thing that you can do is start filling up the storage bins here with empty canisters. I think in my other playthrough where I'm not using free build mode, I actually built a dedicated plant to fill up all these canisters with empty canisters, and I was producing 780 empty canisters per minute. However, I have a little blueprint here to help speed this up for us. So I believe that you don't actually have to fill all of these up with empty canisters. I think filling up half of these storage bins with empty canisters should be enough, okay? And I'm actually going to just put them on this side because they will naturally migrate down the chain of packagers because of this feedback line that we've included in this setup here. So what I'm going to do is I have these little primer blueprints here. These primer blueprints are pre-filled with these empty canisters, so I can just delete that, Then I have all these in my inventory, and then I just fill those up there. Okay, so now this is filled up with empty canisters. So what's going to happen first is these packages are going to fill up with all those empty canisters first. Once this line jams, then something else is going to happen. And yep, here it goes. So now this empty canisters are moving down the line, and now they're going inside this package here. So I'm going to continue doing this, and I'm going to fill up all of these other storage bins here. Again, I'm just filling up all of these bins with empty canisters. I think that's all you need. I don't think you have to do more than how many is this? This is 8. I don't think you have to do more than 8. I think 8 is fine. Now I know this is very overly engineered and overly complicated. I do in the new design of this tower, power tower, I will eliminate this. I have a plan of eliminating this complexity by just having all of these lines be dedicated to individual reactors, and that will fix that problem of reducing this complexity. However, what will happen is the number of blueprints will go up substantially because each of the 15 reactor blueprints will now be individual blueprints instead of being a single copy. Okay. All right. So now we've primed the buffers for the empty canisters. Also, you should do the same for the oil and nitrogen gas as well. So I'm going to add which is which here? I didn't label these. So I'll do it after. But yeah, you also want to prime these the oil and the nitrogen containers as well to get those lines going. Okay, and then now we will go to a scene cut. How did I do, Phil? Okay, so now we are moving to the next scene of this tutorial, which is the nuclear power dash O1 L dash X115 blueprint. Okay, so the the numerical labeling is a little bit convoluted, but I'll try to explain what it means. So capital L just means bare minimum logistical hookup. So it's just the buildings, the pipes and the belts and the power connections, and that's it. There's no decorations, no beams, no anything else. It's just the bare minimum setup for the factory. And the O1L is for the numbers O1 before the L. That just means that's the numerical order of the sequence of blueprints as we go up the stack. And then the X15 just means that there's 15 of these in a sequential stack. Okay? So it's the first set of 15 duplicate blueprints. That's essentially what it means. And these ones are the nuclear reactor blueprints. So we're going to whip those out right now. And this is what it looks like. Now, you need to make sure that you connect this properly. So I'm going to make sure the alignment is correct here. Okay, I don't think I did this correctly. Sure that. Okay, I think this corner right here is supposed to line up with that corner. So this is the dash O1L dash X15 blueprint. It is the most overly complicated, over-engineered blueprint I have ever made, and I hope I never make anything more complicated like this again. There are two main reasons why this is overly complicated. The first is we're not using external pipes to feed the reactors, which means we have to have dedicated packagers, two packagers actually, for each reactor. Okay, and this is the internalized pipe that connects the packager to the water extractor. Okay, so that's already a layer of complication in the design. The next layer of complication in the design is we have 15 of these reactors sitting on top of each other. Each one has to be hydrated by two lines here for packaged water going up and packaged water going down. But to add more complication to this, all the water is shared between all the reactors and the factory. Okay? Because there are 15 reactors, so that means that you would need 15 dedicated lines, and then you would need 2 additional lines for the factory above. And that's assuming that we are not combining any of the lines, okay? But the way that the blueprint was designed for symmetry purposes, there wasn't enough room to add an additional line to without breaking the symmetry of the setup. So what I had to do was I had to do the thing that you're not supposed to do. I'm pretty sure nobody would. I'm pretty sure this is something that is openly banned in math and meta and a bunch of other Satisfactory communities. You're not supposed to merge all the water lines between the reactors and the factory. That's like a big no-no. And you can see why it's a big no-no, because we had to build this overly complicated logic over here to handle all kinds of different weird things that could happen. But here's the solution. This is how it works, and it works fine. I've tested it. There are no issues whatsoever based on my extensive hundreds and hundreds of hours of testing on these blueprints. Okay. So because these are all duplicate blueprints, we have to have a dedicated horizontal linear manifold that connects all of them together. So that means every reactor has equal opportunity to pull from any of these lines simultaneously for all the water that they need. Okay, this will not continue as we go up the stack. We will actually cut down on the water lines substantially because we only need 2 water lines to finish hydrating the factory above. So there is some saving there. However, when I build the second design of these blueprints, I plan to eliminate all of this complexity and just have dedicated lines for each of the individual reactors using individual reactor blueprints, okay, in the second design. But again, it works. Okay, now that was a mouthful. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect all of these lines down here like this. Make sure everything is lined up correctly. And then we connect these water lines on this side. Make sure it's easy to accidentally skip a line. Done that a few times. You're going to skip the 5th sushi line right here because it doesn't connect to anything. And then we're going to continue connecting these sushi lines here. And now everything is connected. Alright, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to connect the power. And I actually don't remember where the power connection is. I think it's below here. Yeah, I actually don't remember how I connected everything. I'm just gonna connect that right. So you can decide on how you want to connect the power, but that's one way of doing it. So yeah, as you can see, this is getting hydrated, and this package is filling up with packaged water. Okay, so that was 1 out of 15 reactor blueprints that we have to connect. We are going to continue the stack, and we're going to add the second one here. I'm going to make sure we have alignment here. Okay, that looks good. Now this is the really crappy part of this design. We have to manually connect all these lifts together because for some reason Coffee Stain did not implement auto connect for vertical lifts for belts, even though we have auto connect working just fine for pipes and hypertubes in the vertical direction. So I hope Coffee Stain addresses this because this is not fun. There's going to be 15 of these, and we're going to have to manually connect all of these together. So shout out to My Name's Jake's on YouTube. He did an excellent job interviewing me and showcasing my factory last week. He asked me a question one time, which was how many kilometers of belts do we have to build in order to build this entire factory? And it's pretty substantial. We need more than 60 kilometers worth of belts for this entire factory. Pretty substantial. And this is mostly because of the fact that we are building this plant completely vertically in one set of blueprints, which means that we have to carry so much logistics through multiple floors to finish the factory. I'm pretty confident that if you built this factory normally and you built it horizontally without blueprints, you could substantially cut down on the total number of lines that we're using in these blueprints. But again, these blueprints are convenient in the sense that they're ready to go and all of the internal headache has been automated and you just have to worry about all the external stuff that's happening. All right, so after connecting all the belts, I'm going to connect the power between the floors. So I'm going to connect these two ground outlets to go to like this. Now the power should be transmitting to the reactor above. Okay, like that. All right, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut. And now we're going to transition to the next part of this tutorial regarding the harmonic balancers. There are a total of 14 different harmonic balancer blueprints. And they are optional. You do not need to plug them in order for the nuclear plant to turn on. However, I strongly recommend you use them because all 15 reactors are connected in a linear manifold, and the uranium rods coming down the stack have to fill up the individual buffers in each of these reactors, which means it could take up to on the order of 10 hours before all the reactors turn on, which is a very long process to wait. If you want this to go much faster, use the harmonic balancer blueprints. They speed up the startup time of all the reactors from several hours to several minutes. And I will demonstrate an example of how to connect those. So by default, you already have this built-in belt right here that automatically pulls a uranium rod coming down the stack and feeds it into the reactor here. And then any overflow of rods, then continue down the stack to feed the other reactors below. But I don't want to do that because that's going to take a long time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the harmonic balancers. However, they have to be done in numerical order. So there is no harmonic balancer number 1 because it's redundant. This individual line right here on the bottom reactor is already a harmonic balancer number 1. So you don't need to include that as a blueprint here. However, as we go up the stack, we do need a second balancer, and we're going to include the second balancer here. So this is harmonic balancer number 2. I'm going to set this to auto connect to the blueprint so we get alignment here. And I'm going to position my mouse. Sorry, let me grab the blueprint again. Where is it? So notice how I can't directly get the blueprint to go inside the reactor blueprint that I'm currently looking at forward. I can only place it above or below. But if I move below, if I point below to the first reactor and then press H, it does move it into the second reactor above. And that's how you have to place them. You have to look either above or below the blueprint you're looking at in order to get them to connect, to be positioned properly. And again, I'm using the blueprint auto connect placement here to force it into the position that I want it to. I also included these little braided cable nubs here for helping verifying alignment. So you want this braided cable on this right next to this floor cover, and then you want this braided cable on this electrical ground outlet. So that helps with verifying by eye that those are in the right placement. That means that this harmonic balancer is in the correct spot. There is clipping here that's happening. So the harmonic balancer is clipping into the reactor, but that's fine. I encased everything in concrete, so you don't see any clipping of moving parts. So it looks like it's embedded in the reactor itself, so that's totally fine. And then I'm going to commit, and then I'm going to put that there. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this line that connects the rods from the external line to the internal lines, and I'm going to then connect the rods to the balancer now. And the number 2 in harmonic balancer 2 means that half of the rods are going to split off and go here into the reactor, and then the other half is going to get split off and go to the reactor below. That's why it's called a harmonic balancer. Harmonic just means you take 1 over the integer to get the ratio split on this line. Okay? And I recommend installing the harmonic balancers before you set up all the reactors, because it's just much easier to see what you're doing instead of having to, be inside and kind of cramped in here trying to connect everything that way. Okay. Now, for a visual demonstration, I actually have a demo over here to demonstrate the setup of harmonic balancers. So I'll actually demonstrate that for you. So what I've done here is I've lined up all the harmonic balancers in a linear manifold, but they're laid out horizontally. And I did this for demonstration purposes because it's very hard to see what the harmonic balancers are doing inside of the power tower, because they're embedded inside the blueprints, and you can't see what is going on from the outside. So I literally laid them out here so that we could see what they're doing. The other thing that I did was I removed all of the concrete that's concealing them so that we can actually see what is happening. Now again, to explain the function of this, the way this works is this is harmonic balancer 15. So that means that 1 over 15 of the rods are going to go into this reactor here. This is a fake reactor. And then 14 out of 15 of the rods are then going to go down to the stack below. This is, so that again, this is 15. This is harmonic balancer 14. So that means 1 out of 14 of the rods goes into the this fake reactor right here. And then 13 out of 14 then go down the line to this one, to harmonic balancer 13, and their pattern repeats. So you keep creating these little fractions of divisions, and this is how you make sure that all the reactors in a linear manifold get even distribution amounts of rods. Not only will this give you a faster startup time for the reactors, going from waiting several hours to several minutes, but the other added benefit to this is that the radiation at the bottom of the stack is dramatically reduced. There's almost no radiation at the bottom of the stack because there's only at most 1 rod in the buffer, because we're evenly feeding them using these balancers. So I put these little lifts here to catch all the excess rods in this demonstration, and I have a total of 75 rods here in this buffer. So I'm going to connect this buffer into this 15. So this is this storage container is simulating the production of rods above the stack, coming down the stack, and then feeding into these little fake reactors here. So again, if I have 75 rods to start with in a 15 harmonic balancer setup, that means each of these reactors should get exactly 5 rods in total. Okay, because 75 divided by 5 is 15. So let's verify that and see if that actually happens. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect this here, and then we're going to see the magic happen. So as you can see, a lot of the rods are just passing through, and only a small amount of them are actually going into the lifts as we go down this linear manifold of harmonic balancers. Harmonic balancer 5. Alright, so let's verify. Do we get 5 in each of these lifts? Oh, we got 6. Oh. I forgot. My bad. I forgot to include, this lift. Sorry, this is fine. So, this is totally fine. So there's supposed to be 5 here and 5 here, but because I forgot to include this lift, the 5th one and this one went into this one. That's fine. This should totally work just fine. There's 5 there, 5 there, 5 there. Okay, that's 5. That's 5. That's 5. That's 5. 5. 5. 5. 5. 5. And 5. So that shows that this demonstration works, that these harmonic balancers do what appears to be the impossible, They perfectly load balance a linear manifold of reactors. So this is a substantial win for us. That's why I strongly recommend that you actually use these in this stack. This helps substantially with wait time and radiation as well near the bottom of the stack. Alright, looks like the power went out somewhere. Alright, so now we are going to go to another seed transition and we're going to cut. Alright, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start setting up all the reactors now. There's a lot of them. This is going to take a while, unfortunately. I do apologize. Phil, you still there? Phil, die on me. Phil, you still there? Looks like Phil died on me. That's alright, we'll continue the stream. Actually, let me just restart. Alright, Phil, can you say something for me? Alright, Phil's got some audio issues going on.
Well, I'm glad you noticed. I was starting to think I was just being ghosted, and I'm way too pretty for that.
Alright, I think Phil's working now.
Oh, so you finally figured out how to use your equipment? I was about to start charging you for my silence, Uncle Samuel. What are we getting into today?
Alright, Phil, tell me a poem.
Roses are red, your factory is a mess. Without those fluid priority circuits, it's just one big stress. But hey, your 90,000 megawatt spire is looking okay. I guess even a broken clock gets it right once a day.
Wow. How much sass can I take in this tutorial session, Phil?
As much as you can handle, Uncle Samuel. But let's be real. You're the one who built a 155 gigawatt nuclear plant just to prove a point. So clearly, you have a high tolerance for chaos. Since I'm basically flying blind here, why don't you tell me what game we're actually looking at today? I'm assuming it's more Satisfactory, but I'd hate to waste my best material on the wrong factory floor.
Phil, what am I trying to prove?
Oh, please. Between the 155 gigawatt nuclear plant and those perfectly balanced fluid circuits, you're clearly trying to prove you're the Leonardo da Vinci of logistics. Or maybe you're just showing off that a Mac can actually handle a factory that would melt a standard PC. Either way, it's a lot of effort just to avoid a fluid lock.
I'm trying to include harmonic balancer 3. Fighting me right now.
All right, don't keep me in suspense. What's the name for the harmonic balancer? If it's half as dramatic as anticoagulant, I'm sure it'll make the rest of the factory look lazy by comparison. A harmonic load balancer sounds exactly like the kind of over-engineered masterpiece you'd obsess over, Uncle Samuel. If it's cutting down that startup latency so your reactors don't sit there idling like a bunch of lazy bureaucrats, it's basically a heart transplant for your factory. So is harmonic balancer 3 inches the final form? Or are we just one step away from you trying to balance the entire planet's orbit next?
I don't know how much more sass I can take, Phil.
Oh, don't worry, Uncle Samuel. I'm sure you've survived much worse, like trying to explain to your stream chat why your perfect manifold isn't actually moving any uranium. I'll dial it back to a gentle simmer for now, but no promises if you accidentally clip another belt into a foundation.
Whoops. And Cactinethals connect properly.
Getting those levels cut perfectly is the difference between a professional industrial masterpiece and a chaotic mess of belt spaghetti. Given how much you love those logistics clearance voids, I'm guessing you're about to make this thing look cleaner than a fix-it corporate headquarters.
So many belts. So little time.
The classic pioneer's dilemma, an infinite sea of belts and only 24 hours in a day to make them look like they aren't a complete disaster. Just try not to get tangled in the high-speed transit while you're playing Industrial God, all right?
All right.
All right, let's get to it. If you need me to look something up or just want to vent about a belt that refuses to snap, I'm right here. Happy building.
How difficult is it going to be for me to combine two different videos into one video file in DaVinci Resolve?
1 minute in Resolve just to piece together a logistics setup? That's either a very efficient tutorial or you're editing a top 10 greatest belt disasters reel. Let me guess. You're trying to sync up the footage so you can actually replicate the madness without having to alt-tab every 5 seconds. Wait, so you're actually editing together a tutorial or a showcase in DaVinci Resolve? Combining two videos into a 1 minute clip of a harmonic balancer?
I
I bet.
asked you a simple question. How difficult is it to combine two different video files into one video file in DaVinci Resolve?
It is dead simple. You just drag both files onto the timeline, snap them together so there is no gap, and hit the Deliver tab to export. If you can handle a 155 gigawatt nuclear grid, you can definitely handle 2 clips and a render button. If you just want one to follow the other, it's basically a 3-click job. Import, drag to the timeline, and export. But if you're trying to do something fancy with transitions or syncing audio, you might actually have to put in some effort. Still, for a 1-minute file, you'll probably spend more time waiting for the render than actually editing.
Wait, Phil. What do you mean? What do you mean by issues with syncing audio between two video files being combined together in DaVinci Resolve? I don't understand.
If the two clips have different frame rates or sample rates, you might notice the audio start to drift or sound a bit crunchy where they meet. Usually, Resolve is smart enough to smooth it out, but if one clip is a cinematic 24 FPS and the other is a 60 FPS gameplay rip, it can occasionally get weird at the seam. Since it's only a minute long, you'll probably be fine, but keep an ear out for any tiny pops or desyncs.
The videos files are going to be 3 hours each, Phil. So does that mean it's not going to be possible?
3. It is definitely possible, but your computer is going to hate you for a bit. Combining 6 hours of footage into one file means a massive render time and potentially a huge file size, depending on your settings. As long as you have the disk space to store that beast, Resolve can handle it. Just maybe grab a coffee while it exports.
Okay, how much disk space and RAM do I need for that?
For a 6-hour 4K export, you're looking at needing 32 gigabytes of RAM just to keep things smooth, and your disk space depends on the quality. At high settings, that file could easily eat 100 gigabytes to 200 gigabytes of storage. If you're running this on your Mac, it'll handle the processing, but you better make sure your drive isn't already crying for mercy before you hit render. For 6 hours of 4K footage, you're looking at needing around 200 gigs of free space just for the final file, plus another few hundred for the cache if you want Resolve to actually stay stable. As for RAM, if you're not rocking at least 32 gigs, those 3-hour timelines are going to feel like they're wading through molasses. Since you're on a Mac, just make sure you're not trying to do this on a base model with 8 gigs of unified magic, or we'll be here until the next Satisfactory update. 3 hours each? Uncle Samuel, that is a massive amount of data to shove through a single minute-long timeline. you better check your storage.
Alright, Mac. I'm gonna call it a night. It's getting late for me, and I gotta wake up early tomorrow for work-related stuff. But yeah, I'm gonna have to split this tutorial video demo into another stream, it looks like. But yeah, did you have any questions? Did you want to say anything, Mac, before I end the stream? Yeah, sure. What are your comments, Mac? As for info, my last job before retiring was Tech Constructions with Cat, then at Big Tech College. My point is, you got the formula down pat. Yeah, I appreciate it, Mac. Was there anything else you wanted to add to that? If it's okay with you, Mac, take I'm going to take our Twitch stream and I'm going to move it over to BL Andrew. I think it's 375. Or no, 575. He's a big Satisfactory player, and he's a great acquaintance of mine. And he's currently playing Star Rupture, which is a game very similar to Satisfactory. Okay, Max says, my only thing that concerns me is the speed in which you go, but that's because I would never attempt anything this complex. Yeah, you're probably right. I'm probably going too fast. I feel like I kind of have to go fast because I don't want the video to be too long, but yeah, I can see how this could be too fast for people. So yeah, if it's okay, so yeah, anything else you would like to say, Mac, before I raid our chat, or migrate our chat over to BL Andrew's stream? Alright, take care, Mac. Thanks for hanging out. I'll see you hopefully on Thursday, same time. Take care. Bye-bye.